You're listening to the Holistic Hippie RN. I'm your host, Laura Gibby, quirky nurse, holistic healer, and transformational coach. Here to empower you to take charge and create balance so you become the green thumb of your life and begin consciously cultivating the life you desire, where you flourish and thrive. Think of this as the greenhouse of growing possibilities that will challenge your way of thinking through mindset shifting, holistic tips, and energetic up-leveling. I am so excited to have you here today, so let's get growing. Hello. I am so excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for taking the time to join in and listen. So today it is beautiful, sunny, not a cloud in the sky, and it started off at 35 degrees, and I was like, whoa. And then I remembered how cold it is everywhere else, and I was pretty happy about where I am now in the desert. Cold, but not freezing. So anyways, today I started thinking about a video I watched the other day. It was a clip of someone reflecting on a stream that someone had posted. And the gal in the stream discussed how she had many different programs she had paid for and how she wound up falling into a lot of debt and failing. All of these things negative happened. And she also pointed out, though, she kind of looked at the pattern and she realized she was the common denominator across the board. She was the consistent factor of all the programs not working, of all the things she tried not working. And she showed a huge level of responsibility. And what I found was really neat about that is all of us can put that into perspective in our own lives, in the sense of, how am I the common denominator in my life? And how can I shift into a common denominator that is going to be beneficial in my life, that's going to be successful in my life, that's going to push me into flourishing in my life? What can I do to create that next up level for myself based on me being the common denominator, based on me being a certain way and showing up a certain way, rather than seeing all these programs not work for me and not quite understanding why. And I noticed that within myself, even, where it's kind of the sense of, oh, this and this and this didn't work out. And when I start getting curious about it, I start saying, oh yeah, because I was being a certain way. I was dropping the ball on certain things. I was avoiding certain things. And as a result, multiple things don't work out. When you look at your life, when you look at one thing that's bothering you, chances are that one thing is showing up in many, many, many areas of your life, and you haven't yet realized it. You haven't quite put those pieces together and connected all those dots. But when you start noticing patterns throughout your life, then I think it actually gives you a better idea of how to shift out of those patterns, of how to take one thing and just change it. So like, say your finances are kind of crazy. Say they're not where they want to be, living paycheck to paycheck, right? So when you start thinking about that idea of, oh, I'm living with enough to meet my needs, but not enough to exceed my needs, right? Not enough to do more with. So look at that throughout your life. Look at your relationships. Are your relationships meeting your needs, but not quite exceeding your needs, not quite going the extra mile? Is your approach to fitness, healthy eating, is it meeting the needs? Or are you excelling in that area? Are you exceeding the needs? Are you finding that different projects you do, that you excel in them, that you exceed the ideas of what you would like to see with them? Or is it the case that you're meeting the bare minimum? So take one thing in your life that you've been wanting to change, just one, and look at what has been going on that has not been quite meeting where you want it to be. Either it didn't work out, either it's failing, falling through, whatever you want to call it, whatever the reason is that it's not quite working out. Get an idea of the main one, the big one. Get an idea of how you're being when you approach this change or project that you would like to create. And the way you're being, look at how that's playing into all of your other relationships, all your other things in life. The things that you might be having little hiccups in as far as creating this change, creating this project, how did those show up elsewhere? And guaranteed, they're showing up elsewhere. It's just starting to put the dots together and connect the pattern and see the pattern. So, and I notice this in myself. I notice this when I observe others. I notice this when I observe my actions and myself. If something is going right, you can analyze how that's playing out throughout your life. And for me, I do see those things. I see how one action within one area shows up in the same action elsewhere. So it makes sense that one action in a negative area shows up the same in another negative area. And I think once you start seeing that, it's kind of a game changer because it gives you a really big breakthrough on how to change that. Because really, all you need to do is approach that one issue and start being a certain way for how you would like to create the change in that issue. And it will start spanning out throughout the rest of your life. That's kind of the idea of embodying your dream self. I talk a lot about embodying your dream life, embodying your vision, things like that. And the idea is that you start being the type of person that you would be being in your vision. So if that person is a high level of energy, if that person is eating healthy, if that person is wearing, the clothes that you have on your Pinterest boards that you love, if that person is doing those things, if they're in, however they're being, if they're enthusiastic about life, if they're loving in all their relationships, if they're kind, empathetic, if they're hustling and moving and shaking, whatever that person's being is how you want to start incorporating into your life, right? So it makes sense that when you start seeing those patterns and connecting those dots in your life, when you start being a different way, then you start shifting all those patterns and shifting all those dots. Even embodying yourself, you don't need to have huge big leaps where all of a sudden the next day you walk out and it's this completely different person that walks out the door. It takes subtle shifts sometimes. It doesn't have to, but just starting those subtle shifts starts you down the direction towards the person you would like to be. And once you start connecting the dots towards where things are not going right in your life, towards that common denominator action that you are being in your life, when you start connecting all those dots and start shifting away from that and shifting that one piece of you that could change all of that, then it starts guiding you down the path of who you would be being. Because guaranteed that person you want to be is not doing the actions you're doing in your life that play out in these patterns. And maybe they are, but I would say it's highly doubtful. So that's kind of my thoughts. This is a quickie little shorty episode. I wanted to throw my 2 cents out there because I watched that video and I thought it was such a powerful video to see someone realize and accept responsibility and notice the way they were in their life is what was causing all of the failures that they were having. And guaranteed they're going to be up-leveling as a result of it because they're going to be shifting and changing. They're going to be making the moves now that they're aware. And once you become aware of something, it's so empowering because then you have that choice to make the change. When you're not aware of it, it's a little harder to mindfully make a choice to make a change. But once you start seeing it and you start thinking, oh, now I know what's going on, then start thinking, okay, now how do I shift this so that it goes right? How do I shift this because I have the power from myself to choose to act differently, to choose to be differently than I've been being that's been creating this pattern in my life. And I think that's one of the biggest things. I think that's so empowering because you realize how much more control and power you have. You know, the outside circumstances are not in your control the way you'd like to have them in control. A lot of us like to have control about every little thing that happens in our life outside of us. But one of the biggest things is realizing how much control you have within you to direct how you would like your life to go. How much inner control you have in choosing. So all that control energy that you want to put into your life being created a certain way, take that control and work within you on it. Take that control and, start sourcing being the way you would like to be if your vision were being created. If you were starting to step into that person that you would like to be, start being that way. And I mean, that's such an empowering thing to realize that we get to make these big choices every day, and we get to have control over how we want to show up in our life every single day. And, a lot of these things, we've been doing these habits, these actions, these ways of being for years and years. Depends on how old you are, but you've been doing it for a while. You've grown up with your different ways of being. But it doesn't mean you can't change them. And it doesn't mean they have to be hard. The easiest thing is being mindful about it and paying attention. The more mindful you are, the more aware you are of when you start shifting in and out of whichever way of being you're choosing to be in. So I hope that resonates. I hope you find the awareness and the mindfulness to start seeing what kind of patterns you've been showing up in your life, how you're the common denominator in your life, and what actions you might like to take to start being a different kind of common denominator and start creating those patterns that you've been desiring in your life. So take care. Have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time.